Living in Virginia, you're in the fast lane on the information superhighway. We've invested $3 billion in Virginia's broadband network to give you one of the fastest internet connection speeds in the world, so you can build relationships, bring new business to our state, and meet the future of education. It's amazing what we can do together. Visit VCTA.com to learn how broadband connects the Commonwealth.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're real pleased to have two members from Martinsville, Henry County. Danny Marshall, good to see you.
Good to see you, Woody, and thank you so much. And I represent the City of Danville, parts of Pennsylvania, parts of Henry.
Great. Charles Poindexter, good to see you, sir.
Good to be back with you, Woody. I think you started here about the time I did.
That sounds good.
13th year and you're 11th or 12th or something.
That's right. Good to see you again, sir. So it's been a little frenetic the first 2 weeks here, a lot more bills introduced. How are things going from your perspective?
This is probably like a hurricane coming through with the number of bills and the activity, and a bit slow getting started. So we're working just hours and hours now in subcommittees. I had a bill that probably wouldn't have been heard until 9 or 10 o'clock last night. So it's probably the most hectic season so far that I've been involved with.
And what changes in terms of your committee assignments, Delegate Marshall?
So I lost my seat on Rules Committee and County Cities and Towns, and then I was put on Education Committee. So I now serve on Agriculture, Chesapeake and Natural Resources, and Labor and Commerce Committee. So I serve on 3 committees.
So does that affect you much in terms of representing your constituents?
Not really. The only thing is just time. Is that I have a Wednesday Education Committee at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then I have a Agriculture, Chesapeake and Natural Resources at 9 o'clock. So I'm running between buildings back and forth. So it's just it's not as far as taking care of the constituents back home. It's just trying to make sure that I cover both bases.
But you're able to continue your expertise in agriculture and those kinds of issues.
Yes, and we're glad we are, because we deal with the same issues that we have dealt in the past, and the issues that come before us in agriculture, Chesapeake, and natural resources are more regional than they are political issues.
Delegate Poindexter, your committee assignments, have they changed drastically?
I would say drastically. Yes, I lost my seat on House Appropriations.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I would have been the senior rural Republican left on the House Appropriations Committee. I was reassigned to the Finance Committee, which deals with just the opposite, the revenue instead of the spending. So I'm basically familiar with most of those concepts anyway, based on my local government and experience here.
So what kinds of bills are you pursuing this year on behalf of your constituents? I know they're varied in quite a few number of them, but talk to us about the ones that you're more interested in.
Well, I've had a variety of bills in higher education, sexual assault, nurses availability, a number of things. But I think probably the most important and the ones that I'll spend most of my time on are related to energy. Okay, both the electricity sector as well as transportation. There are 2 Northeast states-based compacts, interstate compacts.
And those are like arrangements or agreements between states?
That's arrangements between states, and they're both cap and trade type programs where electricity generators such as Appalachian or Dominion Power would have to pay allowances for the emissions. And then that money goes somewhere in a pot to be spent by someone for something. I have opposed those two, And I have budget language in the current budget that they would not go into effect without the vote of the General Assembly. This is a governmental issue to me, to implement programs that are going to increase electricity prices and going to increase vastly gas and diesel prices on the population, and the impacts of that, or maybe the types of vehicles or the types of electricity we have. And I just believe that the people's representatives should be voting on those two compacts. Now, to be a little more specific, most people have not heard of TCI, the Transportation Climate Initiative. That's just getting off the ground. The initial indications are that gas and diesel prices will go up about 22 cents in 2021. In 2023, they'll go up another few cents, and every year they will go higher. I understand the purpose of what they're trying to do, but this has a potential to totally change our transportation system. And it's very important to my constituents because we have to drive a long ways. We don't live 3 miles from work. We don't live 3 miles from a grocery store necessarily. And I just think that the people's representatives should vote on the regulations that are put into effect to do TCI, the transportation side, as well as the electricity side. And when we talk about budget amendments, I also have budget amendments that would take the funds that are raised from these programs, send them back to the people that paid the electric bill, or send it back to the people that paid the increase in gasoline and diesel taxes.
And Delegate Marshall, in terms of economic development, I know you've been involved in industrial hemp production. Talk to us about what's going on there. I know you have a couple of bills introduced dealing with that.
So last year, I was a patron of a bill to basically codify what the federal government did in the Farm Bill that passed in the fall of 2018, and to make industrial hemp a product that we could grow in our area. And so for the viewers, it's rope, not dope, and so you can make clothing out of it, or either extract oils that you'll see in different markets and whatnot, the CBD oil. So the hemp was very successful in my part of the state. A lot of tobacco farmers started growing hemp. They were able to use their existing tobacco equipment to plant it and to harvest it. And so we are looking to try to help farmers stay on the farm. Still in Pittsylvania County, the number one industry in Pittsylvania County is agriculture. Number one industry in the state of Virginia is agriculture. So I had several bills to help that process along. We learned a lot of lessons in 2019 as we go forward as far as the testing of hemp. One of the things is the federal government said we had to have 0.3 THC, and that is just really some number that was pulled out of the air. No science, anything based on it. But anyway, it's still something we have to comply with. And so that has been a problem. They test it in the field. The problem about testing in the field, it is weather sensitive. You go out on a rainy day and test it, it's going to give you one number. If you go out on a dry day, it's going to give you another number. So if you test it on one side of the field, it could be one number, and on the other side of the field could be another number. And the problem is by what the federal government did is they would say that if the THC level gets a point above 0.3, the government could burn that field down. It costs $10,000 to $20,000 an acre to put hemp in the field. And in 2019, we didn't have crop insurance. Our Congressman Riggleman, got crop insurance for hemp in the new bill so they will be able to have crop insurance for hemp this year.
So what will your bills do? Would they alleviate some of those problems?
So what they will do is one of them will allow that when we're not in session, if the federal government allows some changes in regulation that would automatically adopt and that's an emergency bill, so that so if something happens, say in March, and we're not here, that will automatically go forward. And the other one, as far as testing of hemp, trying to figure out how we can test it a little better. The other one is to do is to get the governor to appoint a group to look at how we can market and sell hemp. Trying to look at the tobacco model, where you in our area, you grew it, you had growers, then you had processors, and then you had the manufacturers, in this case of cigarettes. So the hemp oil, the top of the bloom, can be made into CBD oils, but also the stalk can be made into clothing or either into car parts. BMW, Mercedes is using hemp to make the dashboards and the door panels and those type of things. So what I want to do is to make a full circle there. So we grow it, we process it, and we also manufacture it.
Great. And Delegate Poindexter, I know that transportation is very important in your district, sir, especially Route 58, and I know you're attempting to restore some funding to that state route.
Well, it's right interesting. In 2013, I got a bill through that would add $592 million to the bond authorization that VDOT has used for 25, 30 years to continue four-laning Route 58 going west. And that's the only road in the state of Virginia that's paid for out of the general fund instead of the transportation fund. And there's a proposal in the budget this year that would move the administrative and the bond issuing and okaying the projects from VDOT, which is where it's always been, to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, which is the big pot of money that Virginia uses and the Transportation Board uses to fund projects all over Virginia. Now that caught my eye because it wasn't clear to me, and still is not, that if that funding administration moves over to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, that the monies that become available in 2020 to start going up the mountain, up to past Lover's Leap and so forth, starting in Stewart, and get to the top of the Blue Ridge. That's the next part to be built. So I'm very concerned that this whole project doesn't get over into the whole state competitive process. It's already competed for 30 years, and it was of such high priority. It was set up as the only road to be funded out of the general fund. So I have two budget amendments in on that. One which would prevent the transfer, and the second one, if it were transferred, would dictate that that money be borrowed and used to go on with the project in 2020. I presented those bills as my top priority to the House Appropriations Committee yesterday when we had a session where we were allowed to make suggestions to the governor's proposed budget.
Now, how has that transportation bill, I think it was passed, back in 2013, and then there was Smart Scale that was instituted sometime later, if not at the same time. How has that worked for your districts, for example? I've heard complaints that unless you have the authority to tax locally, you're at a competitive disadvantage to people who live in Hampton Roads, for example, or in Northern Virginia.
Well, that's arguable because the Smart Scale and the bill we passed did allocate a certain amount of money to each region of the state. And within our area, our counties for that pot in the, say, in the Salem district or the Lynchburg district for that pot of money. And local governments can ask for projects. The Go Virginia initiative asked for projects, the Planning District Commission. So it's not exactly true that we didn't get any money out of it. We can argue whether we got enough because there is some slant for congested areas.
Right.
So, but that's sort of an esoteric argument. The result of the 2013 bill, though, is that even though people are driving more, they're driving more efficient cars. And there are more electric cars and hybrid cars and so forth. So even though the number of gallons sold might be up, it's returning more revenue, significantly more, but not what we anticipated because nobody could know for sure 9 years later, 6 years later, what the mix would be. So last year, on the 81 area, we had a special amendment by the governor to another bill. We were just proposing to try to figure out how to fund 81, but he went ahead and came up with a solution, and kind of that got pushed through, where people in an 81 corridor would pay a special tax in addition to some other things like truck registrations, and there was a fuel increase in it too. Now, I've gotten some kickback on that too, because counties that are in a Planning District Commission, like Franklin County, have to pay because they're a member of the Planning District Commission that Roanoke is in, where I-81 goes through. So there's still some issues with that, but at least it's progressing.
What about this move, and that was one of the governor's initiatives to raise the gas tax because it isn't producing as much as anticipated because of more fuel efficiency, electric cars, hybrids.
And so that is a problem, because if you go back, say in the 70s or 80s, and the cars were getting 10 to 15 miles a gallon, they're double that now, from 20 to 40 to 50 miles a gallon. And so it's kind of it's a catch-22 where the amount of gas they're selling less of it because cars are getting more gas mileage. But then the problem is construction costs are going up, and we have more cars on the road now. So they are looking for different ways to do that, get additional revenue in. Other states have tried some things, and as far as like trying to put a mileage tax on a car. But the problem is, us in rural Virginia, is the way it would work is you go to a gas and you stick in your credit card, then you have to put your mileage in, and then it calculates how many miles you drove from the last fill up, and it adds that to that. And so the problem is, and I've told this to the folks in administration, I fill up my car in Danville and I drive to Greensboro, and what if I go all the way down to and drive a couple of hundred miles in North Carolina, and then I come back and fill up? They're going to turn around by this system and charge me for the mileage I've driven in North Carolina. Didn't have anything to do with Virginia. So they've got some issues with it. If you live in the middle of the state and drove only in the state, then that's another problem. So I think it's not quite ready for prime time yet.
I have to agree. The governor has already proposed 4 cents, 4 cents, and 4 cents increase in the gas tax over the next 3 years, and then for the gas tax to be indexed to inflation, which would mean an automatic increase every year. I think that's 12 cents. When you add the 21 or 22 cents from the TCI initiative, now we're getting into some serious money here, and some serious impact.
Well, you've also got a proposed increased tax on cigarettes, I believe, per pack, like 30 cents.
Yes. Oh, when I presented my budget amendments, I have a budget amendment that would just take that tax back to what it is now. They'll just do away with the proposed increase. We're a tobacco region. It has to impact our farmers. We're importing more tobacco from China all the time. And I think the most important thing there, regardless of who smokes or who does, it's a regressive tax. It hurts the poor people the worst. And I have yet to find a jurisdiction, a county, a city, or a town, or a state that increased the tobacco taxes and received the estimated revenue from the tax, because it forces smoking down or whatever. And so they don't get the money, and then each year it gets a little worse. So then the general fund, the general taxpayer, ends up paying more to cover what they plan to get from the tobacco tax.
And the other unintended consequences, again, living on the Virginia-North Carolina border. So what's going to happen is that, because when I go fill up my car, I look at the license tags. There are a lot of North Carolina tags because the gas tax in North Carolina is higher. If we raise the cigarette tax in Virginia, then they're going to just go to North Carolina and buy more cigarettes over there and bring them back. So they go into, I think it's not just the cigarettes when they go in to buy, it's other items that they buy in Virginia. So we could possibly lose additional sales tax.
How is the Tobacco Commission doing, by the way?
Tobacco Commission is doing well. 2019 was a good year for our area. We had a job announcement in Henry County. We had several job announcecements in Danville and Pittsylvania counties. So it was a good year. I mean, the Tobacco Commission plays a vital role in that. Just had a job announcement in Franklin County.
We've had 3 with Tobacco Commission support in Franklin County last year.
So if you go back and look at what the Tobacco Commission has done for rural Virginia, our part of the state, it has really helped us get on the map by building industrial parks. Built one in Henry County, Commonwealth Crossing is the last one we did. Then there's one over in Pittsylvania County called Berry Hill. It's 3,500 acres of land. It's the largest tract of land in the state, 5th largest on the East Coast. So. And I saw the economic developers the other day, and I said, I understand we got some fish that might be swimming, in Berry Hill. And he says, these are whales. These are not fish. So that's a big one right there. Look at it. So.
What about economic development in your district?
Well, I won't have as much to say as I used to, because I used to be this ranking member on the Economic Development, Commerce, Agriculture, IT, and so forth subcommittee on appropriations. So it's still obviously a priority of mine, and I'm watching that very carefully.
What about, I think you're probably still looking at the sources of revenue that come into the Commonwealth, one of which is apparently being hurt by these gray machines. I think that's the lottery revenues. Talk to us about that phenomenon.
Well, there is sort of a gray area in Virginia law that gambling machines have to have some skill to them. And so that's a gray area. Some people and some Commonwealth attorneys, some governments think that some machines are and some aren't. Okay, so what we've had is a proliferation of machines that are being placed across the Commonwealth, and have been in the last year or two, and they are not regulated, they're not taxed, and they are now getting a lot of the business that the lottery tickets have been getting. So that's reducing the income to Virginia, the revenue to Virginia from the lottery sales, and therefore that's affecting the K-12, because we use that to support K-12 education. So there are several bills around. I'm almost certain something will come out, probably something along the way of regulations and a tax and so forth, so that they're brought into some kind of control. It's possible they won't be approved at all. It's possible they'll be approved without any of that, but my gut feel it'll be a regulatory system.
So have you seen this same phenomenon in retail?
You haven't, Danville?
We have, and in fact the Danville Planning Commission and Pittsylvania County's Planning Commission has been going through this quite a while, and just like Delegate Poindexter mentioned, is they're not regulated, and so you don't know how they are done, as opposed to like a Rosie's that's up in Vinton. Is they are regulated, and so a certain percentage of that has to be winnings that goes back. You don't know this with the gray machines, and so they have, as like Doug Poindexter mentioned, is I think I've seen a bill to ban them, or either to regulate them and tax them, and the tax rate is all over the board. From I've seen a high of 35% all the way down to less than that. So I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen. I don't know what the tax rate's going to be, but they're going to probably be regulated.
A little bit of a family spat going on between the county and the city.
Yes, it is.
And I know you've got some reversion legislation dealing with those issues.
So, just for the viewers, I do not represent Martinsville, nor does Delegate Poindexter, but I represent Henry County. And so this has been going on for several years, and where it would allow if Martinsville to revert from a city to a town. All right, and so I have 3 bills along those lines. The first bill is there's 5 members of City Council on Martinsville, and so currently, if they have a meeting and 3 members show up, that's a quorum. So what could happen is 2 members could vote to revert, and they could do that that's a very serious situation. And so I have first bill that says 75% of the members have to vote positively to revert. All right, my second bill is that if reversion happens, the citizens of Martinsville's taxes will go up because they will not only pay a tax, property tax for like Martinsville, but they'll also pay a Henry County tax. And so my second bill says that the citizens of Martinsville shall, at a referendum, decide if they want to revert. The third bill says that before this marriage happens, that Henry County might not want to get married to Martinsville, and so that the citizens of Martinsville will decide if, by referendum, if they want to accept them as a marriage partner.
Maybe those initiatives will bring them to the table.
Well, I hope so, because I think that's what needs to happen, and I think the cooler heads need to prevail, because I think there are some common interests as far as common school systems, as far as common jail systems, etc.
Assault weapons ban, I know you have a budget amendment dealing with that. You apparently have identified something that a lot of people didn't see.
Well, there were 2 or 3, and it didn't start then. I'd already thought about it, but my last official duty on appropriations was conducting and chairing the public hearing for the Western region of Virginia in the first week of January before session. We have 4 of those across the state where citizens can come in and comment on the governor's proposed budget. I had never seen so many comments. The citizens did not want any of their money spent on implementing the 7 or 8 proposed gun proposals. So actually I had more than one budget amendment. Wherever there was money set up to be spent on implementing the anti-gun bills, my budget amendment would remove that spending from the budget.
We got about a minute and a half left. I want to give you both an opportunity to answer this question. This session will be successful if, and I'll start with you, Delegate Marshall.
Well, that's a good question. That's a simple question, but that's a good question. And so I think that first thing is always a budget. And I know that Delegate Poindexter worked on that in years past, but the budget is what rules everything. But also, Second Amendment is very important to our part of the state. So we have to, and we're working hard trying to protect those Second Amendments, but I think the deck is stacked against us right now.
You, sir.
I agree with Delegate Marshall. He put his finger on the top 2 items. Maybe I could add we'll be lucky to finish on time because of the slow start and the number of bills. I've never seen this many. I've been here, this is my 13th year. I think Danny's been here a couple of years longer than that.
40% increase, I think you mentioned.
That's awesome. It's you know how killing it is to get there on a normal year, but 40% more is just, we're trying to live it. I don't know if we're going to make it.
I think you also want to add an additional 3% to state salary.
Yes, another budget amendment I've proposed would add 3% to our state's workforce. Our state-supported local people, the deputies, the constitutional officers, our state police, and our Capitol Police, and we've all seen what a tremendous job they have done. That was just simply not in the governor's budget. So, and I've been chair of compensation for state employees and these people for years.
Good to see you both. Good luck.
Sir. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Comcast. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.